Welcome to Shorty SuperCoach and welcome to the weekend preview. And there's a little bit to unpack this week. I feel like the last couple of weeks, I've started this preview with, look, hold fire, there's no need to trade, just do some correctionals, but otherwise we've just got to sit on our hands and wait. But I think there's a little bit to discuss this weekend. Now, obviously, a little bit of team news that will help some. Obviously Fife coming back is the main one. I mean, that's big. I think it always looked as if it would just be the 1 week, but that is big. And look, it's whether you're a Fife owner or not, it's big regardless. If you've got him, great. Welcome back. Here's Matt DeBoer. Probably go straight to you. It's going to be frustrating, but I think more to the fact, if you don't have him, you've got to be looking at a way that you can bring him into your side in 2 to 3 weeks. Obviously the 63, when he left the ground early with the concussion, that puts his break even to 167. So one would think, given he should get a bit of attention today or over the weekend, that he'll have another pretty difficult day at the office. Now, he'll definitely endure at least 2 price drops over the next week, and they could range from 30k to 60k. Nonetheless, I think we're going to see Nat Fife priced around 550, no doubt, in a couple of weeks, potentially 515, 520-ish, all depending on the scores. And we've got to bring him in. So my theory with my team at the moment is I like to identify players that will play that role in the trading plan. So I'm going to need to find some coin. Excuse me, as I struggle there. I'm going to need to find some voice as well. I think I've identified Charlie Constable as the man who might do the job in terms of being the one to get upgraded. He's at 265. He scored a 60 last week. We'll see how he goes Easter Monday. But you just need a guy who's starting to get up towards that 300 mark. And we're not going to trade Walsh because he's absolutely flying. And in my side, you may be different, but I've only got Atkins, Bailey Scott and Michael Gibbons. So those blokes are going to be nowhere near, in terms of being able to reach a Fife mark. So basically, I'm going to need 200 to 250k. And for me, it's going to be easy because I've got 170k in the bank already, but I'm probably, in terms of a downgrade, look, it might be Jordan Clark. I'm not too sure. Look, if I only need 200k, I think ideally it'd be Michael Gibbons. He's at about 150, trade him down to Ross, get about 20k, and, all depending how much Fife drops and Constable increases. But I might be able to sneak that through. But we'll cross that bridge when I get there. And look, all I'm trying to say is plan, because sometimes you can't plan exactly for when guys are going to drop in price and peak and trough and everything. But we can definitely see that Fife is going to be probably as cheap as he's going to get. I don't see him scoring many 63s again, so he's going to be cheap as chips. Now, I'm not sure how you guys went last night. It seemed like a solid night of SuperCoach without anything amazing. A lot of people, like myself, would have had the VC on Neil. And look, he was in tight and working hard, but it never really got on his terms, just as was the case for Brisbane. But in terms of other injury news and team news, Devon Smith goes out and he's in 12% of sides. So that's the real frustrating one. I did hear on the radio that he was having some knee soreness, and it says he's managed. So he's scoring poor, and now he's out. It's a recipe for disaster if you started with him as a premium. Bailey Scott back in the team. That's really good. Just rolling through. Obviously, there's Fife back in business. Marty Hawes kept his spot, and that's really important when Neville Jetta and Jordan Lewis come back into the side. That says a bit, I think that's really important. Obviously Martin and Hooley are back, and Ross he's not only been named, but I think it's always nice when they're named on the field. I mean, when he's named at centre half forward, maybe they're taking the piss, but still, it's good to see that he's keeping the spot. Setterfield, of course, goes out with suspension, and then we start talking sort of extended benches. And look, Michael Gibbons isn't on the extended bench now. I always thought that if they were to be taken out of the team, like that final bench would be the difference with the team. You know, the final 4 bench spots would purely come from those extended with the 7. But from memory, I have seen players dropped from being named on the field. So I will hold my breath with that. But either way, it's not a disaster. I mean, he's not scoring well at all. But yeah, look, brings me to a point I wanted to raise. Now, we all love the VC loophole. But I wanted to talk emergency loophole with you. Now, I think a lot of people are, they know what they're doing with the VC loophole, but we start to get a few zeros, and we know how crucial it is to get a good rookie score. And I just want to take your attention to the forward line and how brutal that has been. You know, Parker's failed at times, and Petrocelli and Setterfield's been failing, so it's been difficult. So have 2 bites at the cherry. So what I'm doing today, Setterfield, I'm not trading him. I'll get to my trades in a minute. But what I am going to do is put the emergency on Petrocelli and hope that he can pump out a 70 plus tonight. You know, I know he hasn't really looked like doing that all too often, but it gives me 2 cracks at it. You know, how do you do that? Well, you put the emergency on whoever you like on the bench and you see how they go. Obviously, they need to play before Carlton. So how it will work for me is I'll see Petrocelli, he scores 78, I'm like, beautiful. I put Setterfield onto the field, and so I'd take Parker off and just leave it like that. So Setterfield's obviously going to score a 0, and Petrocelli will come onto the ground. So, and if it doesn't work, if Petrocelli scores 42, then I'm just going to put Parker. And if Parker scores 44, then, well, couldn't win either way. But it gives you 2 looks at 2 rookies who have been hot and cold. So that's how I'm going to approach that. It's good to keep in mind, and it can be done too if Gibbons does get dropped or you have a 0 in the midfield. You know, Bailey Scott, put the emergency on him today, see how he goes. So I think that's a good little thing you can do. Now, what have I done this week? I've really stockpiled with a view of upgrading soon. Now, I want to talk a little bit about the trades that I want to do in the future. You know, I want to bring Sicily into the back line at some point. Clearly, Lloyd is a guy I'll need to get my hands on. Can Cade Simpson continue to score hundreds after he bounced back last week? You know, maybe a few guys to have to think about. Midfield, Fife, obviously. I really like Josh Kelly. Slowest start to the season after a poor pre-season. I think he could be attainable shortly. McRae's clearly a guy that I'd love to get my hands on. Stephen Cornelio is starting to be priced quite nicely. Forward line, really, really tough. You know, I want to put Robbie Gray's name out there just to keep an eye on. I'm not saying, you know, get him in, but just keep an eye on him because he's going to be cheap. He's probably cheapish already, but you know, he's been reliable as anything, and we're just going to have to see how he goes, but he will be nice and cheap. You know, otherwise, you know, honestly, the forward line's tough. You know, Billings, Menegola, you know, it's bloody difficult. But what I'm trying to say is I want to get coin for when I do want to make these upgrades. I want to have the coin available. And there's nothing worse than getting to a stage of the season, you know, around 7 or 8, and you're upgrading. It's great, fantastic. But there's not too many new rookies coming through and they're not scoring. And you get to a stage where you're actually stuck. You have identified the guys who should go out and who should come in, but you can't do it. You can't afford it. And that's basically when you can really halt and your season can come to a really, really slow grinding halt. So I think what I mean is there'll be teams who have a lot of bench players playing and scoring and going up in value, where you might have 2 players less than them, and that's the difference in a couple of upgrades. So therefore, your team naturally has to stop. And this is where it's interesting. The benefits of your team and how it compares will be, like I touched on the other day, how quickly you can advance your side to a full set of premiums. I made the Age of Empires analogy. You know, you wanted to get plenty of fruit, wood, blah, 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 everything, and try and build that up as quick as you could so you could, you know, go through the Stone Age and all that crap that we used to do when we were kids. it's the same with SuperCoach. You want to make sure that you're getting plenty of money on your bench and even the rookies on the field, so you can keep them rolling and you can drop them down, upgrade others, and keep doing that till you have 20 to 22 premiums before the buys, ideally. But there will be teams who want to do that, but they just can't. They can't afford it. They don't have guys on the field. There are too many injured players on the bench, or they've been dropped, or they've just, plateaued at 240k. So what am I doing with my trades? Out is Burgess. In comes Marty Hoare. Now, as I said off the top, he's held his spot. I think that's crucial. We saw an 86 last week, which is more to the point of what we probably thought he would be doing. So that's really good. I'm hoping he can hold his place and he'll go up. So that nets me a little bit of coin. And I've actually done I think it was Bynes or someone, whoever I had as my R3. I've brought in O'Brien. Now, Jacobs is going to be out for at least 5 weeks from what I hear, maybe 6 or 7. And he's gone 85, 84, really consistent numbers. And at 136k, I think it's a real sort of free hit. He's going to play, and normally that R3 position is irrelevant. It's just a VC loophole. There's no one there. But I'm almost looking at it as an extra sort of added bonus 200k that I can get. Because I think at this rate, he's definitely going to find his way to 300,000 quite easily. And at some stage, we can probably just put him back down to 102k bloke. And at this point, it's not hurting my VC loophole options because I'll have other zeros, at least for 2 weeks for Setterfield. So I think I'm really pleased with that. It doesn't improve my team from a scoring point of view, but it just beefs it up. Because I had a few concerns. Atkins isn't really scoring quickly. Scott, he's just back in the side. Gibbons is going nowhere fast. And our forwards, they're just not making coin quickly at all. Drew's going up. He's slowed up a little bit. And, you look at Parker and Petruccelli and Setterfield. I'm not getting much from that part of the ground at all. Backline's going really well. But, I wanted to just bolster up my revenue, I guess. So I'm really happy with that and pleased with how that's all looking. So let me know your thoughts. I don't think there was anything else to really discuss. I just wanted to roll that out and, I'm yawning. Goodness gracious me. In for a big weekend and I'm yawning already. But I do endorse bringing in someone like O'Brien just because his job security is so good and he's scoring okay, and it's an added bonus having a bloke going up in value at R3. We rarely have that. So, keep looking. I think Ross, bring him in this week, bring him in next week, whatever you like. I think he looked really good, but and certainly Cornelio might be a guy that he's probably bottomed out to an extent, to hundreds, low hundreds. But Oliver is a guy that we should have our eyes on in getting if you don't have him already. I really think he'll bounce back. A few concerns about Zach Williams. Look, I'm holding faith. Look, he hasn't set the world on fire just yet, but I'm holding faith with him. So, Shane Mumford was the other one, actually. Shane Mumford was a guy that people had talked about. Look, it's a no from me. I know he's scored okay so far. I think 111 and 91 or something in that regard. But how are you going to get there? Look, if you've gone something a little bit different, or you're holding on to a Westhoff or something like that, by all means make that trade. But unless you've gone something left field, but if you've gone Grundy and Gawn, or Grundy and Goldstein, or Grundy and Martin, Martin didn't have a good night last night, but look, you've picked 2 premiums. Let's not get carried away. I know Mumford's been good, but I was listening to Lenny Hayes on SEN the other day, and he said, he'll definitely be rested, Mumford. He will be managed throughout the season. So this is not a bloke that we can rely on. He could get rested in 2 weeks, could be in 4 weeks. But look, maybe if you're going to go real creative and saucy in the ruck department, maybe you bring in O'Brien and Mumford for R3 and R2 sort of setup. At least in that way, you know, even if Mumford does get rested over the next 6 weeks, at least you've got coverage, you know, Brian. But don't do it if your R3 isn't playing. And I wouldn't endorse it anyway, because I don't think he's going to be a top 2 ruck, so why bring him in? Yes, he'll make a bit of coin, but I'd hold your faith with a Martin or a Goldstein. You know, Martin's struggled last night, beaten by Grundy, but up until then, they've both been having solid seasons, so I think call the Jets on that one. But look, I'll wind it up there. I hope you have a good weekend and enjoy the long weekend if that's how it falls for you. And hopefully your team gets up and hopefully another good week in SuperCoach. Thanks, guys.